Alan Doyle is out with a brand new album called Welcome Home, and we're so happy Alan joins us here in studio. Welcome back.
Thank you very much for having me. Thanks
Welcome
so much.
home.
Thanks to me. Yes, I know.
Yeah.
It feels like coming home. Honest to God, getting back on the road and doing shows, and it feels like, you know, those long, dark days during the pandemic when we all had to sit in our basements singing into our own faces. I'm so glad to be out with real people, and I know you feel the same, even having people in the studio here. It must be, be a real relief, you know. And we all missed it, didn't we? And it does feel like coming home to be out doing this again. I'm so grateful to be still in the mix.
20th album.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's too many records, really. It would terrify me. During the making of the record, Corey, or one of the guys in the band, or somebody came up to me and said, you know, I think this is your 20th record. And I was like, no. I said, yeah, it's 20. I was like, oh God. It's like, but what a privilege, you know. I remember in like August of 1993 when Great Big Sea had just started, and we made our first record. And I remember Bob Hallett showing up with a box of CDs and taking one out, and I held it in my hand, and I couldn't believe it. That after, you know, a young life of playing in cover bands, and then finally got to be a guy who had a record out. It was amazing to me, and it's still amazing to me.
Yes,
that,
you've outlasted records, CDs. I know they still make them, but of course we're streaming.
No, all that changes, all that stuff, and here we are, and still, people still love coming to concerts. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's still like warms my heart to be sitting in a tour bus and see people lined up down the street to get into a theater, you know, with like speakers pointing in one direction and lights pointing in the other, and like as with all the changes and all the stuff, people still love a great night out.
Sure.
And that's what we still try to give people every night. That's the goal for me.
Well, that's because music unites us. Music connects, right? And I know you're calling this album your 20th, your most personal yet. Can you tell us a bit more about the songs in the album?
Yeah, there's lots of barn burners, like the one we just heard, Dancing Like We Did Last Night, is, you know, a great party anthem, like, which is still my favorite thing to do, and you know, my most kind of a default or like the thing that comes the easiest to me. But and less easy for me is like to be really personal and introspective and kind of reflective. And you know, I'm in my mid-50s now, and it's like I have a son who's about to graduate high school, you know, and so I was compelled to write about things that are a little more sort of personal, a little more reflective, and a little more relaxed even. And so you'll find a bunch of that on this record as well.
Well, it's going to be interesting performing those ones, because you've said that you write for the live shows. You know, people want a night out, they want to have some fun. They're going to be like, oh. It's getting personal.
In the past, it always shocks people if I try to sneak in a slow one. But I'm going to try to sneak in a slow one or two in this show. But there'll still be lots of, you know, barn burners and lots of audience participation songs and all that stuff that we love to do. But I'm charmed by the notion of trying to draw people in a little more, you know, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be fun.
Tell us about one of the tracks, because obviously this is an album of new music, but there is one song here that you pulled from the back catalog.
There's a song on there called How Do We Get From Saying I Love You, which is a song that Great Big Sea recorded in 1995, and I wrote it even before that. It was like my first kind of grown-up song. I'd only written about 5 songs at the time. I was probably 20, and it was about like that first relationship that you might have where breaking up mattered. You know, like you're in high school or whatever, and then you know, Johnny goes out with Rhonda, and then everyone goes out with everybody. It doesn't seem to matter. And then once I remember breaking up with a gal, and when we split up, and then about a week later, we met on the bridge in Petty Harbor, and I felt this difference that, like, oh no, adult relationships are different than kid relationships. Right. And it was just this coming of age moment for me, and that song has always been dear to my heart. And with our great band, our beautiful, beautiful band, I always knew that the combination of skills that we have in that band, that they would do a great version of this song. So Kendall sings on it, and it's so beautiful. It's more like a duet, and it's more piano driven. It's beautiful.
What is it like, Alan, as an artist? Because this just occurred to me as you were describing that, to go back and revisit some of that material and look at what you wrote, say, you know, 20, 25
Terrifying.
Is it like maybe if you've written a diary?
Yeah, it's like looking at photos of yourself or something from a wedding in 1988 or something. You know, like it's. I don't do a lot of it. First of all, I would say I don't do a lot of looking back, and I'm not totally sure why. I always feel like looking back is the enemy of looking forward, and I know that's not true, but it's kind of I always think that like there's so much behind me now that if I start looking at it, I'll get stuck.
Right.
So I'm going to keep looking that way.
I don't like that. That's super deep.
The road ahead, not the road behind.
See how he's on his 20th album with,
Yes.
you know, inspiration like that. You also wrote, you did the score for the new season of
Yes.
Critch.
Oh, yeah. So Mark and Alan Hocko, Mark Critch, Alan Hocko, Perry Chafe, all my friends who run that outfit, when they started doing Son of a Critch, they came to me and my friend Keith Power, who's also a Newfoundlander, a score guy, to do the music for the show. I know why Mark had me in mind in particular, because we're around the same age, and we both grew up in school in the 80s in St. John's, and around the Goulds for me in Petty Harbour. But for him, so the combination of music that was kicking around then in St. John's was very interesting, because we still had all these influences of like Newfoundland traditional music and accordions and whistles and fiddles and that kind of thing. But then there was also rock and roll. Of course, videos were on television and stuff, so we could watch Van Halen and Def Leppard, as just like any other kid. So there was this odd combination of like rock and roll and Celtic music that lived in that time in Newfoundland. And I mean, quite frankly, it's probably the biggest inspiration for Great Big Sea was that period, and so when they built this show, it was set in the 80s. Yeah. Mark came to me and said, you have to help me with the music for it. And I was delighted to do it. It's a great show and it's great fun.
It is a great show, yeah. Mark's a good friend of the morning show. Big fans.
Isn't he? He's just so talented. And like I'm so lucky to have these friends who are always doing something interesting and cool, a movie or a TV show or a play or a book or a musical or something. And they asked me to be involved, and I'm so lucky. I'm so grateful.
Listen, before we let you go, we want to mention you're always posting these great pictures of your adorable dogs on Instagram. And you posted that if we listen carefully, we might be able to hear this guy snoring in the background on Son of a Critch.
That's right. I have a studio in my house, and that's Spencer. He's a 10-year-old Cavalier, King Charles, whatever. And he's, he loves me and I love him. And so he follows me around everywhere. We got up. I usually take him out for a walk in the morning. Then we go down to the studio all day when I'm scoring Critch or recording music or whatever. And he just sits there all day long. And it's like, there's tons of times when I'm recording a quiet instrument, like a mandolin or something, and I'm wondering what the buzzing sound is in the microphone. Of course, I look over and it's him sawing logs on the.
That's amazing.
He's a harsh critic, is he?
Oh, he's not one bit interested. He's down there because the couch smells like him. That's it.
Oh, the new album, Welcome Home. It is available now